Good day, everyone. Welcome to our first lecture in research methodology for English language teaching. My name is Dr. Min, and I'll be guiding you through the exciting process of how to design, conduct, and evaluate research in our field. Today, we'll start with the basics, understanding what research is, why it matters, and the different types of research methods that we can apply in ELT studies. When we say research, we are really talking about a systematic investigation, not just collecting random information. According to the Oxford Dictionary, research means the systematic investigation into and study of materials and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. In our context, English language teaching, research might mean investigating how students acquire vocabulary or how teachers use feedback effectively. In short, research is both a process and a mindset. It helps us move from opinion to evidence. So, why do we do research? There are several key purposes: to learn more about a subject we're interested in, to test a theory or a hypothesis, for example, whether using games really enhances speaking confidence, to improve our understanding or make new discoveries, to establish facts and challenge assumptions. In education, research allows us to reflect critically on our teaching practices and improve learning outcomes. There are many ways to classify research, but at a basic level, we can divide it into primary research, when you collect your own data; secondary research, when you analyze existing information. We can also categorize research into quantitative, which deals with numbers, and qualitative, which explores meanings, perceptions, and experiences. Each type serves different purposes, and often in ELT, we use a mixed method approach. Primary research means you're the one generating the data. This can be through surveys, interviews, focus groups, classroom observations, or even experiments. For instance, you might interview students about their attitudes toward online learning, or conduct a small experiment comparing two teaching techniques. It's hands-on, but also time-consuming, yet it gives you the most direct insights. In contrast, secondary research involves analyzing what others have already done. You might review journal articles, textbooks, or online reports. This is particularly useful at the beginning of your project when you're trying to build background knowledge. Remember, good researchers always begin with solid secondary research before collecting their own data. Quantitative research focuses on numbers and measurable data. Think of surveys with multiple choice questions or test score comparisons. It's often used when we want to test a hypothesis objectively. For example, students who use peer feedback improve their writing scores by 15%. Statistical tools are commonly applied here to ensure validity and reliability. On the other hand, qualitative research looks at meanings and experiences in depth. We use interviews, focus groups, or classroom observations to understand the why and how. For example, how do learners feel about speaking English in front of others? Qualitative data gives us richer, more human insights, perfect for understanding complex classroom realities. And now, let's look at other important ways research can be categorized. We can distinguish between descriptive versus analytical, applied versus fundamental, quantitative versus qualitative, conceptual versus empirical. Each pair reflects a different purpose or level of abstraction. Examples: descriptive research gathers facts, like students' preferences. Analytical research interprets existing data to draw conclusions. Fundamental research builds theory, while applied research solves practical classroom problems. Conceptual research develops ideas. Empirical research tests them with real-world data. Understanding these distinctions helps you design a methodologically sound study. Now, let's look at the difference between descriptive and analytical research. Descriptive research focuses on what is. It involves collecting information to describe existing conditions or phenomena. For example, in English language teaching, a descriptive study might look at students' learning preferences or teachers' attitudes toward online instruction. It doesn't try to explain why things happen. It simply reports and measures what's already there, often using surveys or questionnaires. On the other hand, analytical research goes a step further. It uses existing data, theories, or facts, and then tries to interpret and critically evaluate them. For instance, you might analyze published test results or previous classroom observations to identify patterns and explain why certain teaching methods work better. In short, descriptive research tells us the what teaching, while analytical research helps us understand the why. B are essential. Descriptive studies often form the foundation, and analytical work builds the explanation. Next, we'll look at the distinction between fundamental and applied research. Fundamental research, sometimes called basic research, is mainly theoretical. Its purpose is to develop new knowledge or expand existing theories, not necessarily to solve an immediate problem. In English language teaching, a fundamental study might explore how second language acquisition theories explain learner motivation. It's about understanding principles at a deep level. The results may not have direct classroom use right away, but they help build the foundation for future applications. Applied research, in contrast, is problem-oriented. It aims to find practical solutions to real-life issues. For example, you might conduct applied research to determine which type of feedback improves students' speaking fluency, or how AI tools like ChatGPT can enhance writing instruction. Applied studies are particularly common in education because we are often trying to improve teaching methods, materials, or learning outcomes. So remember, fundamental research builds theory, while applied research uses theory to solve practical problems. Both are important and often complement each other in ELT. Now, let's explore the difference between conceptual and empirical research. Conceptual research focuses on ideas, models, or theories. It doesn't necessarily involve data collection. Instead, it's about thinking through concepts and relationships. For example, in English language education, a researcher might develop a new framework for communicative competence or reinterpret Krashen's input hypothesis in light of modern classroom realities. This kind of research helps us refine or expand our theoretical understanding. In contrast, empirical research is evidence-based. It relies on observation or experience, often involving data collected through surveys, experiments, or classroom studies. For instance, if you observe how students respond to task-based learning and analyze their test results, you're doing empirical research. It's all about first-hand data, gathering facts directly from the real world and drawing conclusions from them. In short, see, conceptual research builds or reshapes theory. Empirical research tests theory with real data. Both are essential. One gives us ideas and the other verifies them. The term research methodology refers to the overall process, how you collect, analyze, and interpret data. You must choose a method that fits your question. For example, if you want to know how teachers perceive ChatGPT, you might use interviews. If you want to measure improvement in reading speed, you'd probably choose a quantitative test. Always use multiple reliable sources and make sure your methods are valid. Your field of study refers to the broader area you're researching, in our case, English language education. Within that, you might specialize in language skills, teacher development, testing and assessment, or technology in ELT. Defining your field helps you narrow down where to find academic sources. The focus is your specific research area within the field. For example, within ELT, you might focus on students' motivation in blended learning environments. Having a clear focus ensures your study remains manageable and relevant. Every research project begins with a question. It may be assigned by your supervisor or developed from your own curiosity. Your research question determines what you need to find out and guides every step of the study. Always analyze your question carefully. Clarify any terms and make sure you fully understand what's being asked. When you start your research question becomes your guiding light. Everything you do should connect back to it. First, take time to analyze your question carefully. Break it down into keywords and concepts. This helps you identify what kind of information you need and where to find it, whether it's theoretical background, empirical data, or previous studies. Always refer back to your research question during your reading and data collection. It's easy to get distracted by interesting materials that are not directly relevant, but your focus should always stay aligned with what you're actually investigating. Also, make sure you truly understand what's being asked. If any terms are unclear, for instance, pakansa motivation, autonomy, or perception, look them up in academic sources. In research, even familiar words often have specialized meanings. Remember, a well-understood research question leads to a well-focused study. Before collecting data, you often need to do background reading, sometimes called reading around your topic. This helps you understand the context, identify key theories, and see how other researchers approached similar issues. For instance, if you studied learner autonomy, you should read what Little, 1991, and Holek, 1981, wrote on the topic. Background reading sets the stage for your own contribution. The literature review is one of the most crucial components of any research project. It shows that you understand the existing body of knowledge and can position your own study within it. In your literature review, you don't just list what others have written. You summarize, compare, and critically evaluate previous studies that are relevant to your topic. Ask yourself, what has already been discovered? What methods have been used? Where are the gaps that my research could fill? A systematic review is a structured and transparent way to review research. Unlike a simple summary, it follows a predefined plan to make the process objective and reliable. First, we collect studies using a planned search strategy, including specific databases, keywords, and even unpublished work. Next, we set clear criteria to judge the quality of each study, ensuring consistency and fairness. Finally, we summarize both the quality and findings across all studies to show what the evidence really tells us. In short, a systematic review is methodical, critical, and evidence-based, ideal for rigorous academic research. A meta-analysis goes one step beyond a systematic review. After reviewing all relevant studies, we try to collect the original or primary data from those studies whenever possible. Then, instead of just summarizing findings in words, we combine the results statistically to see overall patterns, effect sizes, or strength of relationships across studies. In short, a meta-analysis helps us turn multiple pieces of evidence into a single data-driven conclusion, giving a clearer picture of what the research collectively shows. Research follows a logical process: identify a problem or question, review existing literature, formulate hypotheses or objectives, design your research and choose methods, collect data, analyze and present data, interpret your findings. This cycle is iterative. You may go back and adjust earlier steps as you learn more. This diagram shows how research is a continuous cyclical process, not just a straight line. We begin with a literature review where we explore what has already been studied and identify gaps or questions. Next, we move to the method stage, developing hypotheses and defining key variables, what we want to test or observe. Then we design the study and collect data using appropriate research methods such as surveys, experiments, or interviews. After data collection, we analyze the results to see whether they support or reject our hypotheses. Finally, we reach the discussion stage where we interpret the findings, connect them back to theory, and explain their implications for teaching or learning. The process often loops back. Each new finding raises fresh questions, starting the cycle again. That's what keeps research dynamic and evolving. This slide highlights the main types of research designs, or the overall plans for how a study is carried out. Each design serves a different purpose. Exploratory research is used when a topic is new or not well understood. It helps identify possible issues or variables for further study. Descriptive research aims to describe characteristics or behaviors, for example, students' learning styles or teachers' beliefs. Correlational research looks for relationships between variables, such as the link between motivation and test performance. Causal or experimental research tests cause and effect relationships by manipulating one variable and observing the outcome. Longitudinal and cross-sectional designs focus on time. Longitudinal studies track changes over a period, while cross-sectional studies capture a snapshot at one point. Cohort studies follow specific groups over time. Sequential designs combine elements of both cross-sectional and longitudinal approaches. In short, your research design determines how you collect, analyze, and interpret data. It's the blueprint for your entire study. To summarize, research is a systematic, reflective, and evidence-based process that allows us to deepen our understanding of language teaching and learning. In the next lecture, we'll move into defining research problems and questions and begin thinking about how to design your own small-scale study.